You could describe any given witch in the following way, usually female. It varied, interestingly, throughout Europe. France, it was 50-50 male and female, but here it was about 85% of accused witches were women. They tended to be poor, live on the kind of periphery of society, unmarried. That was seen as just deeply suspicious in society. Believe it or not, they probably had a cat, and probably they weren't well liked in their community because, sadly, witch hunting was a very, very good way of getting rid of somebody who you just didn't like. To become a witch, you have to make a pact with the devil, and the devil marked you as his own once you had made that pact with what looked like a kind of just a mole or a freckle. But the difference was, with the devil's mark, it wouldn't bleed and it wouldn't be painful if it was pricked with a sharp instrument. Each one of those would be effectively stabbed with a long knife until one of them didn't cause you to scream out in pain. Well, the tests were absolutely, without exception, horrific. We hanged witches in England, whereas in Scotland and in other parts of Europe, burning was the most common punishment for a convicted witch. So really, if you were found guilty of witchcraft, you could pretty much guarantee that you were going to pay for that with your life. So in the reign of James I, probably the most high-profile witchcraft case in the country. A mother and two daughters who worked for a time at Belvoir Castle were accused of bewitching the lord of the castle, Earl Rutland, bewitching his sons, his two young sons, to death. And it was obviously, a very traumatic case, particularly for the three women, Joan Flower and her two daughters, Margaret and Philippa. And in fact, Joan quite possibly was interrogated in quite a brutal way, and she died. She never made it to her trial. Margaret and Philippa were found guilty of bewitching those boys to death, and they were hanged outside Lincoln Castle. But weirdly, the case has sort of receded from history. It's nowhere near as well known today. It's almost like it was deliberately, not exactly hushed up, but glossed over, I guess, in the annals of the witchcraft period. And it's very, very possible, I think, that might have had something to do with the Duke of Buckingham, who I do consider whether he was rather more involved in the case than he liked to claim, because he stood to gain by the death of those two boys, because he was engaged, or soon to be engaged, to their sister, who would inherit the entire Belvoir fortune if they died. So I'm not saying he definitely murdered those boys, but he was definitely in it up to his neck, I think. So because he was so influential over the king, it's very possible that he helped to kind of dampen the whole interest down after a while.
You got the 60s with so much alternative belief, the age of Aquarius, individualism, also sexuality, the idea that we can all have free sex and this and that, and that it wasn't so bad, and that women shouldn't be kept in those positions. It's all just burgeoning everywhere, and there's a massive occult revival in the 60s. It was really big, bigger than now, more teen witches in the 60s. If you're a modern witch, you tend to celebrate the Sabbats, the 8 ritual festivals of the solar year, so your midsummer, midwinter, etc. And your 13 Esbats, where you get together and sort of frolic with your mates and do a bit of magic. And you're doing the rituals, which are psychodramas of the human place on the year wheel, the wheel of life. And you're doing a bit of magic, trying to affect change and personal development and spiritual growth. Well, the important thing to say is they're constantly in flux. There's no set belief, there's no set book that you have to believe, no creed. Wicca is definitely what is known as a mystery religion. So the mystery unfolds itself as you go into it and you learn it as it goes, and it just takes you deep into the mysteries of nature, really. When I do daily practice, I go out daily, outdoors, and I just connect with nature. That's it. I do my little rituals. I still do big, massive rituals and group rituals, but it's just a daily connection and daily connection to God. Today, people still have the weird, rudimentary, Christianized beliefs that they had here in those days in Africa. They are torturing and murdering people as witches. It should be more accepted, really, but there are always forces of darkness that are against such things.